I have officially lost 100 pounds. This is what I looked like in January of 2025 when I weighed in at 280 pounds. And this is from a recent check-in photo where I weighed in at 178.6. So we're a little over 100 pounds of weight loss into this journey. And I decided to post to my story a few days ago asking what questions you guys have. And so this is going to be just a little Q&A video. Hopefully my dog is not going to spend the entire time walking and jingling around, but I just wanted to answer some of your guys' questions. So if you asked a question on Instagram, this is going to be my answers to your questions. Starting off here, Jake Rubel says, bro, literally, how did you stay locked? I've put on 60 pounds since late 2024. Honestly, there is no secret ingredient. You know what I mean? Like, there are little tricks, there's little tips and tricks, and I can share a few of those things that just kind of made the journey smoother along the way. But ultimately, especially if you're coming from a background like mine, where it's not just you've put on weight, it's not just, oh, like I'm getting big, it's a food addiction. Ultimately, when you're coming from a background of addiction, it's just a choice that has to be made every day. Like I passed the 100-pound mark a few days ago, and it doesn't change the fact that it still sucks like every day, denying what I want to eat. Like it's an active choice that I make every single day. And I wouldn't say it's easier now, really, than on the first day of making those decisions. Like, yeah, there was maybe more motivation on day one. And but now there's also some, evidence that it's worked. So that's encouraging too. But I feel the same thing driving past a Krispy Kreme that I did when I was 280 pounds. It's just that I continue to make those decisions, And so there is no secret ingredient. If it was easy to lose 100 pounds, then no one would be 100 pounds overweight. You know what I mean? So I found a lot of times whenever I found myself asking those questions, how do you stay locked in? How? I've had a lot of people tell me, I wish that I could do what you do. I wish I could be that disciplined. It's not easy for me. I'm not different. It's not, other people should wish they can do what I do. I'm just making extremely difficult decisions every single day. And so that's really what it comes down to. You just have to decide, what is your priority? Do you want to be around on this earth as long as possible? Some people might jokingly say no, but really, do you have kids or do you want to have kids? Well, the choices of what you eat could genuinely decide whether or not you have a few more years with them or not. That's a big enough deal for me that I simply had to make a decision every single day. And no matter what, there's always going to be struggle. If you look at yourself in the mirror and you're super overweight, yeah, you have the niceness of being able to eat whatever you want, but you look in the mirror and have this deep sense of I could be better. On the flip side, the pros of losing all that weight is you look in the mirror and you realize, okay, I am pursuing becoming my best self, but it also sucks not being able to eat whatever you want. So I guess ultimately there is no path that's just completely easy. There is no path that's filled with everything that you want. You have to pick what you want to sacrifice. And so for me, I just chose that I would rather sacrifice eating some things that I want to eat than I would sacrificing my self-esteem as a person. You have to figure out your priorities. You have to make those decisions. And then it's just a matter of executing. A couple simple tricks. I have a motivation folder on my camera roll that I have saved for any time that maybe I'm feeling particularly weak or excuses start to pop up. And maybe it's a motivational video or a clip or an edit or something that just kind of reminds me what it is that I'm pushing towards. I really like that. I'm a Christian. I found that prayer helps. Having people around you, this is the biggest thing, honestly. Having people around you who are making the same decisions you are, or at least trying to, is a big deal. You can do it without that, but I've found personally, I'd rather just do it alone than be around a bunch of people who are making undisciplined decisions. So those are a few tricks for you. Adriel JCB says, what is the difference in losing weight and bodybuilding? Well, bodybuilding is not just losing weight. That's just a phase, right? In prep or during a cut, you are cutting weight. but it's not about the weight, it's about the fat. And so, for instance, if I was on this prep and I only lost 80 pounds to get to be stage lean, I would not have pushed the rest of the way to lose 100 pounds, because you want to be as muscular as possible at a low enough percentage of body fat. So the real difference, I think, is that with losing weight, you're saying, I want to be this weight. And so you are pushing for that number on the scale. Bodybuilding is more about appearance and body fat percentage. And so ironically, if I cut down, I'm 178, I weighed in at like 179 today. If I could be 200 pounds at this same level of leanness, I would take 200 pounds at this same level of leanness. I wouldn't have lost 100 pounds and had that cool, like, oh yeah, I've lost 100 pounds. But I would look way better and I would be a way better bodybuilder. So losing weight is about a number in general, and bodybuilding is more about an appearance or a body fat percentage. But bodybuilding also includes bulking phases, an off season where losing weight is not a factor at all. So that's the difference. Do you miss feeling like Fat Scott Calvin from the Santa Claus? No. Fat Scott Calvin from the Santa Claus had it the worst too, because he wasn't even eating that much and still put on all of that weight. So I definitely do not miss that at all. How are you liking skinny privilege? I have yet to experience any real skinny privilege, I think, at least societally, what people might call skinny privilege. But I like being able to fit into other sizes of clothes. I like being able to, today I had to squeeze through a sliding door that couldn't open all the way, and I wouldn't have been able to do that before. So I'm liking it. I don't plan on leaving it. Oh, this is a good one. Awerta5 says, I just realized I didn't say the name on the other one because it's my sister. Nadine.Elizabeth_. Thank you for your questions. She also asked, who's your favorite sibling and why is it Nadine? No comment. But Awerta, I'm probably saying that wrong, AWIRTA5 says, would you say the first or the 99th pound was harder? This is a very easy answer for me. The 99th pound was 1,000 times harder. And this is kind of a sciencey cop-out answer, but that's because the first several pounds, the first a lot of pounds actually, is mostly water weight and glycogen depletion. So I could lose 5 pounds overnight pretty stinking easily, actually, and most people could. If you spend a day cutting out almost all of your sodium and watching specific water intake and cutting an enormous amount of carbs, I mean, in your first week of weight loss, there's a lot of guys who get their first week done in weight loss and they're like, man, I'm 7 pounds down this week. Like, it happens. And they're like, I'm gonna be this weight by this time. And then all of a sudden the following week, they only lose a ½ pound. And they're like, well, what's going on? Well, fat loss and weight loss are two very different things. So the first pound came off remarkably easily. The 99th pound took a long time to come off, at least compared to the others. So definitely the 99th pound. Rolling Apex Fitness says, and there's a couple people who had questions similar to this, was there a specific trigger or event that you credit to the start of the journey? The other ones that were similar were Feb26, the Enjoyer 2.0 said, did you have a light switch moment that made you start this journey? And then Jackson.S.D said, did you have a rock bottom moment when you realized you needed to make a change? So this is my answer to all of those questions. I had known for a long time that I wanted to do this journey, and I had so many different things that I said at the time. I was in college, so I was like, oh, I'm too busy. I was busy with a lot of extracurriculars, so it was like, oh, I'm doing all those things. I'm trying to start a business. I'm working, blah, 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 blah. I had all these reasons, right? And realistically, I was just scared of committing. I was scared of sacrifice, and I was scared of discipline. And so I got about a year into being married to my wife, and my wife is wonderful for many reasons, but one reason is she's an incredible cook. She makes food so remarkably well. It's astounding. Like, it's truly incredible. And I put on almost 50 pounds in our first year of being married. And it was around December of 2023, December 2024, January 2025, when I looked in the mirror and I finally had gotten to a point where I wasn't just pudgy. I had always been the pudgy kid growing up. But I finally was like, I'm fat now. Like, I'm actually fat. And it had gotten to the point where, if I walked long enough, I would get chafing between my legs. I would get winded pretty easily. I lived a decently active lifestyle. I got a decent number of steps in every day. I played basketball in high school. I was an active person for the most part, but my food was just out of control. And the intake compared to the output, that was a huge deficit, right? And in a positive sense, a positive deficit. And so I finally got to a point where I legitimately, it was like a movie scene. I looked in the mirror and I just decided then and there, I have to lose this weight. I have to lose this weight. And a couple other light bulb moments, by the way, was when I was trying out, my wife was a cheerleader at our university, and so I decided to be the mascot. That sounded like fun. And so when I was doing my medical, I weighed in, I thought I was 240, and at the time I weighed in close to 280. I had lost track. I just didn't know what my weight was. And when they took my blood pressure, it was 180 over 90. So just so y'all are aware, that's insane. If you don't know like those numbers, which I didn't at the time, that is an insane blood pressure. So blood pressure maxing, right? And that was when I realized on that day, okay, this isn't just about appearance. My health is on the line. Like, years are going to be coming off of my life if I stay at this point. And so that was when I decided, January 2025, I was a New Year's resolutioner, but I stuck with my New Year's resolution and I did not stop pushing. I started out with 75 hard, and I think I lost my first 25 to 30 pounds on 75 hard, something like that. And that first year I lost close to 50 pounds, almost exactly 50 pounds, I think, actually, because I was around 230 by the end of the year. And then I had a couple maintenance phases because I didn't want to stay in a cut. I had read that it would be dangerous for me to stay in a cut for like that long. So just to kind of make sure my metabolism was healthy, I had, I think, 1 or 2 months sprinkled in there that were maintaining months. But I stayed pretty much in a cut that entire time up until this, even today. And the other 50 pounds have come off since January. So yeah, that was kind of my light bulb moment. Your perseverance is, CMT_Warner says, your perseverance is crazy, man. Excited for you, but when is your first MMA matchup? I do not have any official news on that yet, but expect news from me on that in 2027. Stay tuned. Teddy Strobel asks, ever struggle with substance abuse? I come from a substance abuse household. Only one parent, not both. My mother, want to make this clear because I've said substance abuse household before without clarifying this. My mother is amazing. She had nothing to do with it. But my father was an alcohol addict, as well as a number of other things addict. So I grew up in an addict household, but I have managed to have discipline in those areas. I have never tried any drugs of any kind. I do occasionally drink, but I have never been drunk before. I've never even attempted to test my limits on that. I do enjoy the taste of alcohol. I really like a gin and tonic is my go-to. I really like gin and tonics. I like whiskey, but I never get more than a couple drinks deep just because I enjoy the flavor, but the point of it for me is not the feeling, it's the flavor. So I've never been drunk. I've never been under the influence of any drugs. I would consider sugar / caffeine / fatty foods to be addictive substances, and I was absolutely a food addict. So if you're including food addiction, I was definitely a food addict, but nothing beyond that. AC_the Bard says, how many daily steps to get there? It depends on the phase. So I have had, I would say in general, the 10,000 step mark every single day is a really great way to get there. It's not just about the steps. I think that having devoted cardio is still important. There are a lot of guys who say, I'm seeing them say, oh yeah, just get your steps up. That's great, don't get me wrong. That's actually like crucially up there. But if you're not doing any devoted cardio on top of it, you're not gonna see speedy results. If you're wanting speedy results, like since May 1st, I've lost about 3 pounds a week. And that comes from both a step count and devoted cardio. But I have also had multiple like 2 to 3 week periods where I was hitting 20,000 plus steps a day. January of this year, I did 100,000 steps in 24 hours. That's a really crazy video. If you want to go check that out, that's a little bit lower on this channel because it was in January. Still to this day, probably the craziest physical challenge I've done. But yeah, I would say it depends on the phase, but around 10,000 steps a day is a good mark. Best quality, Murillo Castro _ says, best quality of life improvements you have experienced. Quality of life improvements are almost entirely mental. To be perfectly honest with you, I've only noticed a little bit of like endurance increase because again, I never really lived a sedentary lifestyle. Like I would not have considered myself a brutally lazy person, lazy compared to my food intake, but like I would go hike, I would go on walks, I would ride bikes, mountain biking, street biking, basketball, even running occasionally. Like even at my fattest, there was never a time where I couldn't run a mile, you know, or I could, like when I was 260 pounds, I think was when it was 250 pounds, 260 pounds, I ran 10 miles. So I was always a fairly active person. So like, I feel better doing it, especially in MMA. I've noticed like as the weights come off, I can last a lot longer in sparring rounds before I get gassed. But most of it's mental. Most of it has just been mental state. I experience less depressive states. Anxiety has not entirely gone down, it's changed, but I feel like it's a healthier type of anxiety because it's things I can actually work on. I don't know. Mostly mental. Murillo Castro also asks, do you believe people started treating you differently after all the weight loss? Yes. I have been treated completely different after the weight loss, and some of it has been positive and some of it has been negative. I have noticed I have gotten more positive attention in general from people who I am meeting for the first time. I am married, and so I am not looking for any sort of interaction really with the opposite sex at all, even on a friend level. Maybe that's just me. I'm just not interested in that personally. But I have noticed, I think, a little bit more attention from the opposite sex. I've also noticed just in general, people who I would have considered, and this is totally such a homeschool sounding thing to say, but people who I would consider cool people, you know, like guys who are fit, who are cool, who do cool things. I am more accepted in those groups now that I am skinnier, now that I'm more fit. Like groups of people who I am more interested in being a part of, it is now more accessible, if that makes sense. Like when I was on 99 to Beat, this cast, the reality show that I was just on, a lot of people on there who I think maybe would not have given me the time of day did. So that's the positive side of it. But the negative side of it is that people really project, and it's really exhausting, actually. The number of times that people seem to think that when you start working on yourself, that it has something to do with them and that it reflects on them. So it's funny, I have a lot of people who now, for whatever reason, feel the need to justify all of their actions to me. You know, they're I'll be at church at a potluck and someone will grab a cake and they'll just be like, oh, I normally wouldn't eat this, but I'm blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. You're like, you don't need to tell me that. Like, your decisions are your decisions. That's fine. You can eat whatever you want. Or, you know, people who will, if I eat something, I'll get a reaction, you know, oh, I didn't know you cheated on your diet. And it's like, well, I got to this point, so clearly I'm knowing what's working for my body, you know? So like people ironically make remarks on my body now much more frequently than they ever did before, which is really funny considering that I'm healthy now and I was not healthy then. But I think that people didn't feel threatened in any sort of way because they feel better than you when you're fatter than them. And so I think that there might just be less people who now think that they're better than me, and maybe that's threatening. I don't know, but definitely treated very differently now that I am skinnier. February 2016, Jory 2.0 asks, what is the end goal of your weight loss journey? Well, I've essentially reached the end goal of my weight loss journey because my goal wasn't to lose 100 pounds. It was simply to be the best bodybuilder that I could be right now. And so up until this point, it was just getting to this bodybuilding show that's happening here this Saturday, August 15th. I'm not sure when this video is coming up, but it'll almost certainly be before the show. So I didn't really have that goal in mind. So now the goal is just maintaining some level of leanness while putting on muscle mass. That's what 2027 is going to be all about. I'm going to have a brief crash out period in the week and a half after my show because of something that I can't tell you guys about, but something that I need to put on some weight for. The most recent video that I just uploaded, go watch it. It's very important. Talks about my crash out diet that I'm going to have. Go check it out. I'll link that in the description below. Make sure to check that out. But yeah, now it's just about body fat percentage, manipulation, and muscle growth. So I have, I guess, technically hit, my brain doesn't work this way because and maybe this is unhealthy, but I always set a new goal, or my goals are never fully, truly attainable. So I don't feel like I've hit the end of the road. I'm really only just starting. But yeah, so I guess my goal now is not weight oriented. It's more just body composition oriented. February 2016, George 2.0, which, by the way, thank you for all of your support. I appreciate the number of times you've hopped on my Instagram lives and been very encouraging. Are you hesitant to ever go on a bulk that could bring you back to or close to your peak weight? Yes, I am. To be perfectly honest with you, that's something I've thought about a lot. There is part of me that is kind of scared of going on any sort of bulk or of losing leanness just because of how much work it took to get here and how much of being in a mental state of discipline, just sheer discipline and self-sacrifice that it took to get here. But at the same time, I also know that bulk phases are just a part of the journey, and that if I got here once, I can get there again. So I guess we'll have to see when that time comes. We're technically going to have a mini bulk here where I'm going to be trying to put on as much weight as possible in about 10 to 12 days. And so that's going to happen, but I also know that that weight is coming off immediately afterwards. So I don't think I'm going to be scared during that. Yeah, it's going to be, my first true bulk phase is going to definitely be a clean bulk. It's not going to be a dirty bulk, just because I want to see what my body does on a lean bulk. And yeah, so yes, if I'm being honest with you, I am a little bit scared of bulking, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it regardless. 2 more questions. Actually, one of them is a trolling question, so we're just going to ignore it. So one final question, and it's one that I've already answered. So psych, that is all of the questions from the Instagram story. So this has been my weight loss Q&A. This channel hasn't really been about weight loss, but I kind of realized that 100 pounds of weight loss, I wasn't even thinking about this. As a matter of fact, I didn't even realize I was going to hit that point until a few weeks ago, where I kind of realized like, oh crap, I'm going to have lost 100 pounds. And I think that that is a lot more significant than I was giving myself credit for. Like 100 pounds is actually a huge thing that I should probably talk about a little bit, because now like I'm qualified to talk about weight loss a little bit, I think, after 100 pounds. And to be clear, I did it without any sort of drugs. I did it without any sort of like no steroids, no peptides, no medicine, not even blood pressure medication when I had high blood pressure. This was just raw, simple weight cut. I worked out, I did cardio, I dieted, and I lost 100 pounds. And so I realized, I should talk about this a little bit. So I figured this would be a good way to start. So yeah, this has been my Q&A. If you guys have any other questions, put them in the comments. Maybe I'll make a second one depending on how this one goes. But I just thought I'd answer some of you guys' questions because it is crazy to have gone this far. And I'm just excited for what the rest of my journey holds. So gonna keep pushing through until my show on Saturday. And then the crash out diet is going to be insane. Make sure to check out that video next, and I'll see you guys in the vlogs over the next couple days. Peace.